What you're about to watch is a sales training I did for my team of 10 people in one of the companies that I own. This was a training that was requested to me by our sales manager to manage state, to be able to not be triggered on the phone with certain types of people, to be able to confront people and not feel like you have to people please, to not be scared of confronting people and coaching them. And our sales team was deeply impacted by this training. Some people were crying their eyes out. Some people were like really emotionally impacted, working through a bunch of things that came up that have been holding them back in their sales process. I'm Spencer Robbins. I was Alex Hormozi's second salesperson at Gym Launch. I worked for him for over 2 years as his company grew to 160 employees. I've sold over $50 million in consulting sales. I have 3 companies now. I've collected over $20 million in revenue, and I've trained hundreds of salespeople at my companies, and I've taken over 15,000 sales calls in my career. This training is not going to be super tactical on script, process, objection overcomes, or anything like that. It's going to be on state management. One of the companies that I own, in which I had 52 W-2 employees, was an emotional health company. We built our whole sales process to be emotionally attuned to clients. It was unlike any other sales process I'd ever heard previously. And it was really birthed out of teaching, training, and coaching our salespeople to be connected to themselves, connected to people, and sell from a really ethical, emotionally intelligent place. If you watch this training all the way through, I know that you're going to get a bunch of tools in order to become more of your true self, in order to be a lot less triggered on the phone, and to crush it in sales. But do it as yourself. Hope you enjoy.
Cool. Well, I just want to start by saying that this might feel like woo-woo, some of the stuff to some of you, because like, let's face it, when we jump into sales, most of us are performers. Like, we have some sort of invitation to perform in our lives. Like, we've become performers in our lives that have led us to excel in a position like this. What that can be sometimes, though, performers can actually blow past their heart, their feelings, their needs, what they're actually going through, and push through and just do what's necessary on the outside externally to achieve a desired outcome. We can do that in sales, right? We can go, oh, I may have been feeling lonely for months, but I don't care. I'm going to keep myself busy. I'm going to perform so that I don't have to feel it. And I think sometimes that shoots ourselves in the foot. I think for the longest time, I was really good at sales ever since I was 18 because I had an intense need to be liked. So I got very, very, very good at winning other people over. My desire to be liked, which was actually a big deficit of mine, I was unaware of until later on in my life, it led me to become a people pleaser. So I was like the textbook hider. I was a chameleon. I was one way with this person. I was another way with this person. I'd get in a group with this people and I'd be completely different depending on the people that were in front of me. That led to really, really great sales activity. That led to lots of ambition and performance. It led to me excelling in different sales positions that I was in. Now, when I started embarking on a health journey, it wasn't to grow in my sales skill. It wasn't to be better at something. It was because my life had hit a rock bottom in different areas. And so I just wanted to get free again. I wanted to stop feeling like the torment and the torture that I was feeling. I didn't know that it would actually lead to me being a better salesperson. And so the second chapter of my sales career, I was very, very, very good because I had a capacity for empathy unlike any other person. I no longer felt people pleasing, so I could confront people and not feel bad about it. I no longer believed people were fragile and took over responsibility for their emotions or their shame when I confronted them on something. I felt like I could do it out of love. I felt like I could do it with gentleness. I felt like I could share truth and know that I was fighting for a person and their true identity and not letting them sit in the place that I know I had once been, which was allowing my protectors to lead me to a place of regret. What I want to encourage you guys with is that a very, very, very good salesperson is a good coach. The best coaches have been through a journey themselves. We've all seen those coaches that get up and they're hypocrites. They are sharing something that's a message they've never owned to themselves. They're repeating Tony Robbins. They're repeating all the other people that sound good. And they've even maybe made it their own personality. They've taken on this personality that's made them be a certain way. Well, I know I did that for a long time in sales. Like, that's what made me so good is I was able to fake it. Like, you know, that fake it till you make it. Like, how many of you guys have actually like used that in sales at any point? Like, I have plenty. And help me too, so I can know if this is like falling down or if it's landing at all. Like, if I'm asking any questions, just like wave if that's you. But a part of this is having moments where we're able to slow it down to be able to recognize if we're not functioning in what I call our true selves. So what I want to talk about today is your true self versus your triggered self. So like, how many of you guys have been triggered on a phone call, like a sales call at all before? So you guys know what a trigger is. Can someone tell me what they think a trigger is, like your definition of it?
I wanted to ask you because I feel like you could be triggered in multiple ways. I feel like you could be triggered maybe an aggravation, or maybe you could be triggered and it don't have to be aggravating. Maybe it was annoying, different. I was going to ask you.
Yeah, no, that's great. So what you're defining are symptoms of a trigger. So triggering symptoms, we've all heard of like fight, flight, freeze, right? Responses. There's actually 4 different Fs for an amygdala response to trigger, which is fight, flight, fawn, and freeze. Those different responses tell us if we're triggered. Fawning is when you go into relentlessly or aggressively trying to take care of someone. So that would be a big codependent response, right? So someone hurt you in a relationship and you're like, what can I do to make it better? Right? How can I help you? How can I serve you? Oh, I just want to love you. You can almost become clingy. That's a type of 4F response as well. But triggers, like you said, it's anything that's pulling you outside of your peaceful, joyful, hope-filled self. I believe this. At our core, in our true identity, we are filled with hope, we love, we have joy, we have peace. So in that state, you're also connected to wisdom. And in that place, you can have your discernment on, you can feel empathy for people. You don't have to try and jump in all these protectors. I'm going to win you over. I'm going to make sure I'm good enough. I'm going to make sure that, I win this thing so that I can feel good to Taylor and so that he gives me a response. Like we have all these different like triggers that come up. Becoming aware of them is going, okay, what am I feeling something outside of myself? Do I feel a little frozen? Do I feel like sweaty palms? Do I feel it's like, that whole Eminem moment, it's like, palms are sweaty, knees weak, arms are heavy. It's like, that we start getting that feeling in a moment where you're like, oh, this is not me all of a sudden. They even have what are called abandonment melanges that exist in our lives where it's multiple months at a time. We'll be feeling triggered and not know it. A lot of people will define that as depression, but they're finding more and more research. It's like, no, you've actually been in a lonely state for a long time and you haven't been able to get out of the cycle. And so for months, you felt deeply low on yourself and you don't know why. A lot of us have learned with a lot of like coaching practices and things like that is just address the mindset. Just think differently, right? So let's go, okay, what's the truth? What's the lie that you're believing, or what's a belief that's not serving you or supporting you? Okay, what is that? And then we go and we write it down, or we think about it and we go, okay, it's this. I'm thinking that I'm not enough for this person that I'm in front of. Okay, what's a truth that would serve me better, right? Have you guys walked through anything like this before? Stuff like that? Any of you guys? Yeah? Okay. So then you go, cool. Well, it's that I am enough. It's that I have what it takes. Okay, I am enough. I have what it takes. You say it 10 times, you say it 20 times, you write it down. And then you're like, cool. If I just do that 1,000 times, then I'll start to get it and I'll sink into it and I'll be able to show up as enough with these people. Except what that is you're actually gaslighting yourself. You're manipulating yourself into believing something you don't really believe at your core. And then you're hoping that you're going to have enough behaviors or external evidence to prove to you that that's true and that what you experienced in your history is false. But it doesn't work because deep down inside, you're still going to be waiting for that person to reject you along the way. And those performers, like for me, I'll just start sharing a little bit of my vulnerability in my past so you guys can understand what this journey has looked like for me. When I first started getting help with this stuff, it was because I was a performer in everything that I did. Ever since I could remember, I didn't feel like I was enough. A lot of you guys see Taylor. You can tell that he's a pretty fit, jacked person. He is also very brilliant, very smart. In academics, he performed at a super high level his whole life, was a hard worker though. It wasn't like this thing where it's like, oh, it naturally came to him. He was smart, he was gifted, but he had some of the craziest work ethic I've ever seen out of any person that I've met. And that also contributed to his fitness. It contributed to the way he played sports. There's a lot of different things. Well, you can imagine as a little 10-year-old that was the chubby kid in the family, that had an addiction to video games, that was given ADD medication because I couldn't focus in school, that would become a comparison monster for me that grew pretty big in my life. And so for some reason, I just always had this gut feeling of I'm not enough. And if I really want to be enough and I want to be approved of and I want to be loved, I have to be like Taylor. And so I worked so hard my entire life to try and do that, and I failed at every turn. I could not make friends in school because of the ADD medication that I took. So I remember for years playing with a hacky sack or a soccer ball alone on the soccer field at lunchtime during, elementary school, junior high. I remember just feeling alone all the time, like big pain. And my only friend of 4 years moved to Arizona when I was in 7th grade. And I remember crying nonstop for 2 days because my only friend that I thought would ever accept me was gone. And it was painful. It was super painful. And that pain continued on until my freshman year of high school. And I became more and more overweight. And I became more and more consumed with believing what other kids said about me. And kids are mean, right? Like they don't know what they're saying. They don't know why they're saying it. They don't know that they're, trying to make themselves feel better. They're just not aware of those things. And so they just share whatever comes to their mind. And if it happens to be putting down somebody else, they'll do it. In high school, I basically threw my pills at my parents. I was like, I'm not taking these anymore. It shuts down my social skills. I don't feel like I can make friends. And it's like, have you guys ever said a joke in a group of people and then it just like falls flat and nobody gets it and you're like, oh, you know that feeling? That was every time I opened my mouth. That's what it felt like. I was like, man, nothing that I say lands. I'm just gonna not talk. I'm just gonna hide. And I decided I'm gonna become a professional hider. And that's what I was good at. Well, freshman year, I learned that I had social skills without the pills. I started making friends. It was like, I saw this kid make a joke in my first period class in high school. And I was like, oh, that's fun. So I started cracking jokes in that same period and kids started laughing. I was like, this is crazy. It was like a drug. So I was like, every period that day, I was like, I'm gonna make a first impression. I'm gonna be the class clown. So I did that every single period. And I became the one that other people wanted to have as a friend. I became the entertainer. I became good at that. So I was the funny fat kid, right? That was my new identity. And I was like, well, I think that this is gonna be the way that I thrive now. And then my girlfriend of 2 years dumped me the day before Valentine's Day. And at that age, it's your whole world. And I honestly believed that was the only girl that was ever gonna love me, like ever gonna choose me. At that age too, you're like, of course it's true. So I basically internalized every time I had ever been rejected up to that point. And I was like, I am not lovable because I'm fat. This happened at a deep subconscious level. So I rejected myself. Over the next year and a half, I lost 96 pounds. And it was through intense self-hatred. I didn't know it, but I hated the chubby guy in the mirror. I believed that he was responsible for all my rejection and abandonment. And then I got a ton of proof when people started accepting me, telling me how amazing it was that I lost the weight. Girls thought I was a new kid in school. I was like, this is crazy. I was getting all this attention. So the funny fat kid jokes didn't work anymore, right? I had to start joking differently because people thought I was like an arrogant prick by joking that way. And it was like, oh, this doesn't really work. I have to change my style. And I kind of did that, but I learned to still be liked because deep down, I hated myself. And that was the big problem. Well, flash forward to 18 years old. I had a crazy, call it an encounter with God that just shifted my entire paradigm. And I became like a Bible thumping like religious Christian where I just preached at everybody. And that was my new sale, right? And I was selling it to everybody. I just didn't know how to talk about it. It was like I had this cool experience, but then I just learned religion from a lot of people. So that's kind of like just what it turned into. And that morphed over time where it actually turned into like a real faith that I had that was like really authentic to me and true. And I learned to love people better. But that turned into another performance. I learned, in this new group of church, here's how I can be accepted. The guy that does the most ministry, the guy that reads the Bible the most out of anybody, the guy that shows up to every service, the guy that, so I went down a new list of all these things that I can do to be accepted and loved by that group of people. It was so crazy because there's such a group of like real authentic stuff in there where it's like, no, it's just true desire. I would do this no matter what. I don't need that like deficit leading me there. But at the same time, that deficit was really leading me there at the same time. And so it was just this huge cluster. And then I went to ministry school. Well, in ministry school, it turned into even more of that performance. I was speaking on stages. I was like, I'm going to be the greatest person in ministry that ever lived. So I learned to love people really well. I learned to pray for people all the time. It was all really great stuff. Like, I mean, very moving experiences. So I'm not going to discredit a lot of those experiences that I've had in my life and my journey. But at the same time, a lot of it was driven from this deep need for significance, to feel like I am significant in the world. That led me to massive burnout. I got to this point where I had led a trip of 32 students to Costa Rica as a mission trip. And I get back from this trip and my heart turns off. It was like emotion gone. It was like if there was feelings I had, it was a light bulb, the light got switched off. And I could not feel. I could not feel anything. I watched people getting served and loved on in this other country. It didn't do anything for me. I, just went crazy into medicative mode. And this might be TMI for some of you, but I got to this point where I was addicted to porn. I was getting drunk most days of the week, probably 5 or 6 days of the week. I could not sit through a message at church. Christians that were talking to me where I would share vulnerably what was going on, they'd start preaching at me and I'd just feel like I want to punch them in the fucking face every time they talk to me. Just like, I'm like, stop, just stop. Like, and just big anger and hatred. And then I started feeling like that's God then. If other people are that way, then that's how God is, and he's judging me too, probably. And I just felt more and more disconnected from myself. And I got to this point too, where I was like, I had fought really hard in my life to protect sex for marriage. It was something that was really important to me. We grew up that way, my brother and I and our family. It was a big core value of ours in our family as a Christian household. I'd fought really hard for that. And I got to this point in this journey where I was like, I don't care if I sleep with the girl at the end of the bar. It was just like everything that was going on internally, I was like so outside of myself. And I went to see this life coach because I'd heard about this guy, and I walk into the office and he's like, why are you here? And I told him all that stuff. I was like, hey, here's all the stuff I'm doing. Here's what I'm thinking about. I just want to blow up my life, basically. And I was like, I hate God. I hate church. If another Christian talks at me, I'm gonna punch him in the fucking face. And he's like, wow. He's like, thanks for being honest. I was like, well, yeah, paying you a ton of money. Might as well be freaking honest in here. He was like, cool. So this guy, for the first time in my life, I felt somebody actually fully love me in the midst of my biggest mess. The biggest mess. I even told him I was throwing up after meals, something I didn't tell you guys. After I lost the weight, anytime I had a cheat meal, I'd throw it up. I learned you can throw up after meals. And that was a way that you could almost erase the calories that you just ate. It was an intense self-hatred. Even though I had a six-pack in the mirror, I would grab the parts of my body that were fat and I would like try and rip it off with just so much like agony because of how much hatred I had towards myself. Everybody thought I was the happy-go-lucky entertainer, had a smile on all the time, could perform in every environment. They didn't know that I had intense self-hatred. Well, this guy loved me in the midst of it. It was the first time in my life, in my worst, I felt like someone chose me, accepted me, loved me. Didn't define me even by the things that he was hearing. I wasn't the loser to him. I wasn't a bulimic guy. I wasn't an addict, I was actually just a man in pain, and he saw that, and he was able to love me. He was able to love, I could tell, the little boy that I still was underneath that was hurting. Here's how he engaged in a different way in that moment afterwards. I just was like, man, this feels crazy the way that this guy is just affirming me, loving me, what he's saying. But then he shifts his engagement. He leans in and he goes, so fucking do it. And I was like, do what? He's like, sleep with the girl at the end of the bar. And I was like, what? And this guy, his wife was a pastor at the ministry school that I was at. So it was just like, I didn't understand where he was coming from. I was like, at first I was like, is this a joke? And I started laughing. I was like, and then he wasn't laughing. I was like, okay. And then I was like, are you allowed to say that? And he's like, it's my fucking office. I'll say whatever I want. And I was like, okay. And he's like, he leans forward and he goes, is mommy and daddy looking over your shoulder? Why don't you be a grown ass man and make your own goddamn decisions for once in your life? And that was a moment that I had not felt that much responsibility over my life. I literally responded and I said, I don't know if I want that. And he goes, exactly. He said, stop blaming the judgmental Christians around you. Stop blaming God. He's like, you hate yourself. That's the problem here. And you blew past all of your heart, all of your emotions to get a result, and you stomped on your heart in the process. He's like, you hate yourself. He's like, when did you decide you first hated yourself? That sent me on a journey. So that was a 10-year long process. That's what led to me and my wife starting an emotional health company, is because it just naturally turned into that. I became passionate about this because of the freedom that I got in it. Now, while I was going through that journey, I had 5 different sales jobs. My 5th one was Alex Hormozi working at Gym Launch. Now, my ability to confront people had come from my journey of confronting myself over and over and over and over again. We experience these real estate investors all the time, and we're like, oh, you're scared. Why are you scared? There are hidden beliefs inside of all of us that lead us to different behaviors. Getting back to what I was saying before, you can't just think about that belief and replace it. You actually have to go, what experience, because our biggest beliefs, core beliefs, come from the biggest emotional experiences we have in our lives. And beliefs become protectors that protect us from feeling those things. So we go, okay, dad was really terrible to me, abusive, neglectful, created space and distance every time that I did something wrong, okay? Some of us will create a belief, and a lot of women, men are bad. It's it can be very subtle. You might even be like, that's not the whole of the belief that I have, but I do believe every man has the capacity for bad. There's that thing that just like can weave its way in. Anytime you see a sign or a symbol from a guy that's doing something wrong, you're like, oh, men are bad. And it's like this quiet whisper. Where did that come from? Do we just go, oh, let me replace that with, no, men aren't bad. And we can even rationalize it. They have pain that are driving them there. You can even get all the emotional health language in it, right? But it doesn't matter unless you actually find healing from for your heart as a little girl towards the father you had and the way he showed up in your life. Unless you feel protection over that little girl, unless you feel love, connection. And then you will go, okay, in the moments where I get triggered on calls with certain types of men, or the ways that I get triggered in relationships, I can't just go into, let me coach myself and fix the belief or the behavior. It doesn't work. When desire is pulling you a direction, discipline is not strong enough to pull the other way. Desire is a thing in our hearts that's meant to be filled. What a lot of religion does poorly is they go, oh, you have a desire for this thing. Let's just fix it. Let's just discipline you to not have that anymore. Don't feed the bad dog anymore, right? It's like, feed the good thing. There's all forms of religion. It's not just like, Christian or, Buddhism or any of those other religions. It's like, no, we all have our own religions. The rules that we adopt to protect ourselves from pain. It's the things that we go, this is my ruling system in my life. That's your religion. So we all have different ones. I'd say like even, I'm not even gonna get into any of the religions, but you trying to bring a discipline into trying to discipline your behavior or your belief is not gonna fix a desire. The desire needs to be fulfilled in a healthy way. So if you went without a strong mothering, nurturing presence your whole life, and that led to you having really terrible relationships with women, right, as a man, is that going to just get fixed by you thinking differently or bringing in different behavior? Or do you think there's something else that needs to happen where your heart needs to feel nurturing in the ways it never had your whole life? Here's what I want to address, because this is a whole big can we can open, right? And it's a journey that I love for every person. And it's got to be like piece by piece, and sometimes we go, gosh, there's like 1,000 rocks to turn over in this, like in my life with all these different things. It's like, yeah, I can feel that way. But usually it's like really 1 or 2 that all the other 1,000 are connected to. And that honestly gave me hope. But also this life is a relational exchange. It's not about arriving at a destination of I'm finally perfect. Because people that are wanting to end up finally perfect are the ones that believe love will finally be accessible for me when I am perfect. So that's why we're reaching towards a destination so aggressively, is we're like, when I finally get to this destination, I will finally be lovable. I will finally be enough. For the father that didn't love me, for the mother that didn't love me. It's whatever deficits that were created in childhood lead to the way that you show up in your life as an adult. So what do? We have to get tender at the parts of ourselves that we have to admit are still younger parts of ourselves. It's still a part of me that's arrested in development. It's still a part of me that never got to mature and grow. We go, well, how do I mature and grow? Is it just the right beliefs, the right thinking, the right thoughts? No, it's compassion. Compassion is the way that we actually grow and mature. Everything that comes from compassion, true discipline, true healthy discipline, not punishment, discipline has to come from compassion. I love you so much, and you're so much better than this, right? I know the person you are. You matter so much more than this behavior. And so I'm gonna fight for you. Compassion statements can sound like, I can see how hard you've been trying. I can see how much this hurts you. I'm so sorry for what you've been going through. I see the pain that you're hiding. There are moments where if we feel those things, we're like, oh, like if there's a person that steps into our lives and says that in a moment that we're in pain, we feel it. We're like, oh. And alternatively, if somebody comes in that moment, how many times have we ever seen somebody that's gone through grief? You know, you're at a funeral, somebody comes up to you and they say it with a good intention, but they go, God just wanted them for himself. And they like throw a statement out there to try and save you from your pain. These are people that don't know how to feel pain themselves. They don't know how to have compassion in their pain. They've felt alone in their pain. They think you need a fix. So they're trying to fix you, because that's what they do themselves. You know, we give away the love that we've received ourselves. So on sales calls, I want to bring this back to like your actual role. We're dealing with human beings every day, and we ourselves are human beings. Common triggers that we feel on sales calls are, I have to be enough. It's like that feeling of I have to be enough for this person. And it's a trigger of like, I'm not enough. Who am I to talk to this person? Who am I to help? And so then we can go into our different protectors. I'm gonna fake it. I'm gonna act like I'm an expert. I'm gonna act arrogant. You put on your protector mask, right? We've learned it. Like I'm good at faking that I have it all together. So I'm gonna do that. Or the other thing you could do is just be transparent, be yourself, and have that be enough to you. When have I decided I'm not enough just as me? It's like, why can't you be on a journey? Why can't you be an expert in as much as you are an expert in? Why can't you have the authority you actually have in something? Why can't you be qualified because you care enough about that person? You are qualified by your care, right? As salespeople, if I care enough about you and you can feel it, you can feel like I care way less about my agenda to make a commission than I do about my agenda to help you and serve you, and you feel it, you're gonna trust me. You're gonna trust me to coach you. You're gonna trust me to confront you. I'm gonna trust me to confront you. So that means you have to be functioning out of your true self. What we do in sales, we try and add in all these different external behaviors and thoughts and mindsets and everything, when deep down it's like, I don't believe any of that. And if that's true and you're like, I don't believe any of that, you're gonna be a hypocrite, and that sales job is gonna have an expiration date. There's gonna be a moment where you go, I can't sleep at night because I'm being inauthentic. Like, good sales comes from service, being authentic, and being on your own journey. I had noticed when I started confronting things in my life, my consultative approach to selling friggin' blew up through the roof. I have no problem calling somebody out and their fear about money. Why? Because I can do it compassionately and empathetically. But that comes from me having to work through those things myself. I know what it feels like to be $1 million in debt and hate myself for it and think that I destroyed mine and my family's life. I know what that feels like. I worked through the shame of it and learned to love myself in it before I solved the problem. And then I solved the problem. Because I didn't do it as a scared 4-year-old anymore. I did it as adult me and my true self, because I was able to love the little kid that felt shame for messing up everything, felt like I deserved punishment. So what do we do with all this? When you notice you're triggered, there's a knee-jerk reaction to jump into your protector. First thing you do, here's like 4 simple steps for triggers, okay? Am I triggered? That's step number 1. It's like, if you're noticing any other feeling besides your true self, peace, hope, love, connected, empathy towards another person, wisdom, right? You're connected to discernment. You feel like you're enough, all those things, right? Okay. Am I triggered? Did something happen? Did I start to shut down? Did I start to feel off? Is something going on? Okay. Now, what am I feeling? Right? What am I feeling? Pause. Like, have a moment. It doesn't have to be long. You don't have to give an entire day to this. It's just having a moment. You have a dead space, you create it even. I know my biggest thing is like, if I am feeling pain, it's so easy for me to rush into work to medicate, to rush into like, let me just watch a political something on YouTube. Let me read a book that is like nonfiction that's getting my head more knowledge to execute on. And those are all good things even, but they can be medications to me when I'm in pain. And I'm trying to rush and not be alone with myself, because being alone with myself in the pain is tormenting, because it reminds me of the little kid that I was on the playground alone with no friends. But instead, what I can do is go, what am I feeling? I'm triggered. Okay, what am I feeling? I feel alone. I feel sad. I feel scared. One of those three emotions you want to start with. You might even feel angry. Angry is a protector emotion though. It's like, I want to get big because I feel so small. I feel so powerless. And so I need to try and feel powerful. That's an angry emotion, but it's a protector. It's not the real tender emotion. You want to get to tenderness, because tenderness leads to your own self-compassion. Self-compassion is if you're a Christian or you believe in God and you believe God is loving in any way, shape, or form. You don't have to, by the way. I just happen to believe love is something that we all need, regardless of your faith. But if you're loving yourself, you're actually just agreeing with the God that made you that you are lovable. It's you just agreeing with it. Empty self-love is fake self-love. That's where you're trying to just fake something. It's another fake it till you make it, right? You're saying the things you don't actually believe yourself. What we can start in when we're going, what am I feeling, is truth telling. What am I feeling? I feel not enough. You have to tell your truth of how you feel in the moment. You know, call it whatever you want. God, love, empathy. None of that stuff matters unless you're actually you. You know, it doesn't matter. That stuff won't land. That's why performers that are really good at performers, they never feel loved. They never feel like they're enough. They never feel like when somebody gives them encouragement, they're like, yeah, it's because of my performance, not because of me. Because if you met the real me, you wouldn't find me as lovable. That's what we believe, performers. So you have to take the mask off to have love have a landing pad. So a part of this is going, okay, what's that?
I was gonna ask, like, because I know in light of time and everything.
Yeah.
Is there stuff that, like, if Spencer's talking through all this, are you guys like, I'm confused, I have a question around this, or like, even if you're like, man, this is making so much sense, like, I feel safe enough to even to bring up something like, you know, I think this is something that I deal with, like this specifically, because I think us having some sort of like practical way with also Spencer help giving some input on your personal, like what you're grabbing from this would be important. Does anyone have a comment or like want to share like how this is landing for you?
Thank you so much. I've done a lot of personal development, but this is the reminder of this and the continued practice I think is important. I had a call like a week ago with this guy who reminded me of my dad, and I got triggered. And I was like, oh, I can't tell this guy what to do or lead him through the call, and because he knew it all. And what I'm getting out of what you're sharing is the little Simi in me, like I have to parent her, and when I get triggered or to let that go, I'm not taking responsibility. So I'm really curious about the other two steps you started sharing. Am I triggered? Ask myself what I'm feeling. And so 3 and 4.
No, this is good. So here's a very simple thing. Is what am I feeling? And then who is somebody that represents the love, or it's like, actually, sorry, I skipped a step. What does that feeling remind me of in my past? So like you just said, I even go, how old do I feel in this pain? 5, or I feel 10, or it reminds me of 6th grade again. I'm at the lunch tables alone again, or, dad's upset, I'm not okay, or I'm in an argument, my voice doesn't matter. What is that feeling that is coming up? What's the truth? What does it remind you of? Oh, it reminds you of this. You want to get to a younger age, because when we see a younger kid going through pain, we have natural compassion and empathy. And what we have to recognize too is we are all of the parts of ourselves together. This is parts work. It's big psychology, right? Is parts work. It's, a lot of internal family systems. You can study all that stuff yourself, but there's a younger part of you that's actually arrested in development. And so then you go, what does that little kid need? What kind of love does that kid need? Then we go, okay, I can try and love that child. Or this is a really powerful visualization, is who is somebody that represents the love that my heart needs? So is there a person that ever represented protection to you? Even in a moment, doesn't have to be a perfect person. Is there somebody that represented masculine protection? Somebody that affirmed your voice, somebody that was, happy to accept you in your worst, that could tell you, right? Then you go, okay, as 5-year-old Simi or 7-year-old Simi, let me actually just see that person come in to a moment with me and love me. Let your heart actually receive love from that person. For me, Miss Farquhar, my kindergarten teacher, she believed in me when everybody else, all the other teachers, my doctors, my parents said there was something wrong with me because of ADD. I need to get checked out. I need to get medication. She's like, I remember this and it still makes me get choked up. She walked up to my parents. There's nothing wrong with this kid. He is brilliant. And just that statement, it's like, it still does something for me. I'm like, oh, before I ever figured it out, before I became the performer, before I got medication, there was somebody that knew that I was great underneath. One thing I want to say, because I know a lot of this, you're like, crap, this just cracked me open and I have all this stuff coming up to the surface. Very simple. I give you permission to have the protectors that you've known, right? Just give yourself that permission. I give you permission to have the protectors you've known and to take this one step at a time. It's like something you just give your heart permission. Also, I give you permission to be messy. I'm not going to reject you. This is stuff you say over yourself. I'm not going to reject you even if you're messy. And it's like, and I see you. I see the pain that's coming up and it matters to me. You matter to me. Those little statements, then go into your day. Go into your day. Take calls. Be the performer again. Wear all the normal stuff that you wore. That's fine. Do it for a time. Then take the hat back off when you have some margin. But a part of this is like, we do function in a society sometimes where it's like, okay, now's not the moment to work through something, but I am going to shelf this. And I'm going to go back to that shelf after when I can approach it. I'm not going to turn on Netflix and I'm going to just spend 30 minutes just feeling what was that earlier? And can I actually get a little more connected to that? One drop in the bucket is all that matters. You don't need to fill up the whole bucket. You don't need to solve this in a day. I remember plenty of times where I'm like 5 years, 10 years into this process, even to this day, where I'm like, am I not freaking past this yet? Are you kidding me? Simi, you saying you've been on a journey? Me too. This has been my life. And I still have shit hit the freaking fan on a daily basis. So this is not about a destination. This is a relationship with yourself. That's all that it is. Relationships don't have a destination. They have a progression. This is about progressing and connection, deeper levels of connection and safety. That's it. And then, like I said, I'm here to stay. If you guys have time margin, happy to answer any questions you guys have as well. Or hear thoughts or things that came up for you if you wanted to share it as well. Yeah.
I have a statement.
Yeah.
I want to firstly say, no, I appreciate you for sharing your story. It's definitely some very deep stuff. I was on a training before I even got hired in. I know you were on a train as well, and I thought it was great then. I think you answered my question. I was going to ask, is there a point that you get to where you don't get triggered anymore? But you said it's more of a relationship. It's more just building a relationship with yourself.
Anybody that's married knows that conflict will never stop. Triggers are just moments where you're in conflict with, a part of yourself. It's a moment where you're like, oh, I'm feeling things, I don't know what to do with it. I would say don't make the goal to not be triggered. Make the goal to have a relationship with compassion when you're triggered. And triggers do start to fall away. But if you make it your goal to have no triggers, you're going to make yourself a project in your life. And how many times do your friends want to spend time with you when they feel like a project? Probably not much. I've gone through so much emotional health stuff where I'll be years in and all of a sudden my heart is disconnected from myself. Why? Because I felt like a project to myself again. My heart is screaming, you just want to fucking fix me. And I'm like, I do. Shoot. I forgot this was actually about love. And that if my only agenda is love, that the results will take care of themselves and I don't have to worry about controlling those. Dude, everybody that you talk to on a sales call is a little kid that needs love. Some of us act better than others, but we're all just little kids. We're tender inside. You know, something I love, and I'm not trying to get all preachy and stuff, but something Jesus said was, you'll by no means inherit the kingdom unless you become converted and like a little child. Why did he say that? It means that he must be childlike. If he's inherited the whole kingdom, that must mean that when the way he loved people, he spent time with people, like whether you're a Christian or not, you can admit that he was a loving force on the earth. And how was that? We see children, we don't want to violate them. We want to protect their innocence. We want them to stay tender. We want them to believe and reach for the moon and the stars. And, you know, it's like, okay, when did I stop feeling that way about myself? And here's the cool thing, Sal, is the more safe we get with our own hearts, the more safety other people can feel to trust us with theirs. As a salesperson, you do want to be a safe and trustworthy source, not so you can have the agenda of selling them, but so you can have the agenda of helping them. So part of this is going like, hey, I empathize still. You need to make a hard decision because the decision you're making is not helping. You can only say things like that when people trust you. A lot of people think like discipline creates space between a parent and a child. Doesn't. No. Punishment does, for sure. Punishment says you're bad for what you did. I'm gonna make sure you know it. Discipline is, I love you too much to let you continue that behavior that's destroying yourself or others. So discipline actually creates strong bonds between parents and children when it's done with love. I know Taylor left, but like I said, anything you guys need. I know you guys are some of you guys are just out in the feels, which is good. And I think sometimes just having the space to feel is actually enough. It's just enough. You don't have to do anything else with it. You just get to feel. It's like, whoa, there's a lot of pain there. Just being able to recognize, oh, there's a bunch of pain here. That's validation. Our hearts need validation. We need that before we're given a solution. We need to know like this, it's okay to feel. It's okay to feel. I'll tell you that right now. It's okay to feel. You're not going to lose your job for feeling. You can hop off, Sal. Like, you're not going to lose your job for being vulnerable, for being tender at all. This is a place like, I have such value for this. This has changed my life as an entrepreneur, as a salesperson, and everything that I do. It's made me be more aware of things that I know how people function too. It's like with marketing and sales, all the stuff. And every day I want to make sure I'm not doing that in a manipulative way. I want to make sure I'm like, no, am I doing this to serve people? I don't always win at that, right? Sometimes I have to recognize, no, I violated my heart in a way. How can I take ownership for that?